Let the words of my mouth be acceptable, the thoughts of my heart before you, Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Psalm 19, verse 15. Hello, and welcome to Pathlights Studio. My name is Carol Hunsberger, and I am so excited that you have chosen to join me for the second episode of Unlocking Purpose through Communication, Faith, and Confidence. In a previous episode, I defined what communication is, and I talked about the two needs that human communication fulfills: this affinity need, which is the need for human contact, and influence, that we want our life to matter. I also challenged you for our first stepping stones activity, in which I asked you just to reach out and let someone know that an action or words had been influential in your life. In this episode, I want to discuss how communication works through the use of two different models: the transmission model and the interaction model. We use models all the time: model airplanes, model homes, model cars, models that are on the runway, and our ultimate model, Jesus Christ, who modeled for us the way to live and treat one another so that we could join him in his heavenly kingdom. The textbook definition of communication is it is a process of sending and receiving messages through verbal and nonverbal channels to create meaning, to create a shared understanding. And the way that we send that message is through different models or different ways of communication based on the situation and the context. Let's start with the transmission model of communication. Here are the four elements. You have a sender, a message, a channel, that's the way the message is sent, and a receiver. So, for instance, in making this YouTube video, I'm the sender. I'm putting together this message to help create meaning. I'm sending it through a channel, which in this case, it's a video posted on YouTube, and you are the receiver. Now, we call the transmission model one-way communication because I'm really not expecting any feedback, any response from the receiver. I'm just putting the information out there. We do this all the time. Maybe it's our Christmas letter. Maybe it is a post on Facebook that we're not expecting a response. Maybe it's cheering for your favorite football team on the television. Maybe it could be prayer. Matthew 6:6. When you pray, go into an inner room, close the door, and pray to your Father in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will repay you. The sender in this instance is you. The message is the prayer. The channel is air, and God is the receiver. Now, while we are hopeful that our prayer will be answered, we are not expecting the skies to open up and Jesus to join us in our room. That's not how transmission works. It's one-way communication. You're just getting the message out there. Now, the interaction model was created in response to all the posting and things that we do online, because while it is two-way communication, we are expecting a response, but in most instances, it is delayed. So we have a few more elements I want to add to this model. First, you have the sender. The sender encodes. And when a sender is encoding, they're thinking about the best way to package the message. You still have a channel, and a channel is the way the message is being sent. Are we sending it through a text? Are we sending it through a voicemail? How about an email? We're not expecting a response immediately. We're putting that Facebook post out there, that Instagram message, and we are hoping for some type of response. So therefore, the receiver will decode the message and then they offer feedback. So when we send and receive messages, we try to think about the best way to send a message. For example, some ways an email is the most efficient way to send a message to the receiver. For my children who have their devices almost glued to their hand, if I want a quick response from my children, the best way is to text them. And then I know that they're going to get the message and when they have the opportunity to respond. But here's what I find really interesting. When we send a message through the interaction model, we can pretty much predict how fast there's going to be a response. And if they don't meet that expectation, that prediction, we begin to worry. If I text my daughter Emily and I don't get an instantaneous response, either she's in a meeting, right? Or she's busy with the children. If it goes 2 or 3 hours, I begin to get concerned. And then I do mom's preferred method of communication and sending a message is I pick up the phone and call. When I teach this lesson in the classroom, I will have my students get out their phones. And they're kind of looking at me like, really? We can use our phones? And I'll say, what I want you to do is I want you to just send a quick message. Hi, mom. Hi, dad. Hi, boyfriend. Hi, girlfriend. Hi, brother. Hi, sister. Hi, best friend. Just send them and say, hey, I'm just thinking about you. And let's see how long it takes for them to respond. And pretty soon I start hearing the ping, 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 and students kind of smiling. Often students will tell me the response they get is this: you're supposed to be in class. Why are you texting in class? I'll talk to you later. And they get this idea, they look at their device, and here's some things that are happening. You know when it's delivered, right? Because it says delivered. You could be, as my students say, left on the red, which means they've read your message, but they haven't responded. Or we look for those 3 little dots, anticipating the message that is to come. Well, I was doing this activity one time in a large audience of adults. And I asked them to get out their phones and to send a text message to someone they love just to let them know that they were thinking about them. Well, at the end of my presentation, this husband and wife came and approached me and they said, we just have to tell you this story. We did the assignment and my husband reached out to our daughter. Well, our daughter started texting back going, Dad, are you okay? Is everything okay? And my husband was paying attention to you and wasn't responding to the text. So then my daughter started texting me, going, Mom, what's wrong with Dad? Finally, Dad had to get up and leave the room and call his daughter and say everything is okay. By him texting, that wasn't his usual means of communication, and it sent a different message. So we need to think about the receiver. We need to become what's called other oriented and think about how the receiver is going to unpack this message. Because of this texting, right? The words that we choose to use, words can mean many, many different things. So, in response to needing people to put an emotional content along with the message, we created little emojis or emoticons that kind of give the receiver an idea of the message that we're intending to receive. Because it could be, I love you. Yeah, love you, or hey, yeah, love you, right? We even the words I love you can have many, many different types of meaning. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to stop the video and I'm going to ask you very quickly to get out your phones and I'm going to ask you to text someone a message. Have you got a response? I hope it was as loving as the one that you sent them. Earlier in this episode, I gave you a textbook definition of communication. It is the sending and receiving of messages through verbal and nonverbal channels to create meaning. I want to give you Carol's definition of communication. I'll even make it sound fancy. It is the process of sending and receiving messages through verbal and nonverbal channels in order to get the other person to do what we want them to do. I know, that just sounds rude, doesn't it? It sounds so self-serving. It sounds selfish. But let's think about this. Don't you send messages to your loved ones, to your family members, to your significant others because you want something from them? And does it have to be selfish? I send messages to my kids because I want to keep the lines of communication open. I want my kids to come home and spend 4th of July with me here in Florida. I want my kids to be healthy. I want my kids to know that I love them. I send messages to my husband to let him know I'm thinking about it. What do I want? I want my husband to know that I love him, and I want my husband to love me in return. Do I want something from you, the viewers of my YouTube channel? Absolutely. I want to help you discover your purpose. I want to help you realize that you're worthy of that purpose. I want you to discover the desires of your heart. I want you to get out there and start going after your goals. I want you to figure out what your purpose is so that you can lead yourself and others to heaven. I want you to become the person that God created you to be. And if we're really honest and you're joining me on this journey, don't you want something from me? Do you want me to make insightful, fun, entertaining, and educational spirit-filled videos? Do you want me to watch my living my desire, my dreams out loud? Sure. Wanting something from the other doesn't have to be selfish. Wouldn't this world be a little easier if we just kind of went around saying, this is what I want from you, and this is what I want to give you? A lot of times when we are engaged in conversation, we really never know the full impact of our conversation. I told the story in the previous episode of my one student and his persuasive speech that God does not exist, and the question that I asked at the end of his presentation. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about my brother Sean and our lives together and how a fateful conversation changed both of our lives. I grew up in a family of 4. I was the oldest. It was me, and then my brother Sean was 9 months younger. Patrick was 2 years younger than me, and my sister Beth was 6 years younger. We had parents who loved and took great care of us. But us 4 children, we were very, very different. I will tell you, I was probably that type A overachiever, work, 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 work. I want to make my parents happy. Sean was very different than me, and he and my parents did not get along. There was a lot of discord in my family, and it was on everyone. It wasn't just Sean that caused the issues. Sean didn't make these issues any easier when we would get to school and he would look at the flagpole. And if the flag was flying stiff with an offshore wind, Sean would look at me and say, give me the car keys. I'm going surfing. And I would just be appalled and I'd go, Sean, we got class. You can't go surfing. And he'd go, I'm not going to graduate. I'm going to become a professional surfer. Well, Sean and I just didn't really see eye to eye because we were very different. And to be very honest, I don't think we really liked one another. But as I was away at college and Sean was home pursuing his dreams of becoming a professional surfer, I'll have to be honest and tell you, I really admired him. He wasn't taking that straight, expected path. Sean was blazing his own trail, and I really was very proud of him. In my junior year of college, in a nonverbal class, we had to read a book called Love by Leo Buscaglia. And I'm going to tell you that book really changed my life and how I learned how to love other people. Well, for our assignment after reading this book, we had to call someone that we hadn't told in a long time and let them know that we cared about them, that we loved them. We were to implement the lessons that we learned from this book. And I decided that I was going to call Sean. Who better? We had had issues in the past. I could call and give him this loving message. We could make amends. I could write about it. I'd be the hero of the story. And yes, I'd get a good grade on my paper. But if I'm honest, one of the reasons I chose Sean to call and let him know that I cared about him was because he was getting ready to leave the United States to embark on his dreams of becoming a professional surfer. He had a one-way ticket to Puerto Rico. He had his surfboard and a backpack full of boogie board shorts. And I was concerned that Sean would get over there, he'd make some poor choices, and I might not see him again. So I call home and my mom answers the phone and I ask if I can speak to Sean. And she's like, okay. And she gets Sean on the phone. And the first thing that Sean says to me is, what do you want? And I said, Sean, I know we haven't always seen eye to eye. And he goes, well, that's the understatement of the year. And I said, Sean, I know you're getting ready to pursue your dream. And I'm just calling to let you know that I am so proud of you. If I had 1/10 of your courage, my life would be very different. Now, I'm expecting oh, Sissy, thank you very much. And we have this moment, right, that I get to write about and seem wonderful after reading this book. And what I hear is click. Yes, Sean hung up on me. My first thought wasn't he hung up on me. My first thought was, well, now what am I going to write about? Well, I wrote the paper, I told the truth, and I got a marginal grade. Well, Sean left for Puerto Rico, and Sean served Australia, Africa, South America, Hawaii. My brother served every major coast that this world has to offer. And in the early 90s, he placed third in a national surfing contest. And for a while there, he was making money as the sponsor for Impact surfboards. Sean went out and lived his life. Fast forward many years, and I see him when we're coming home from vacation, and there's still a strain. Our relationship is strained, but my brother loves me, and I know he adores my children, and my children adored Sean. He was real, he was authentic, and the highlight of their summer was when we would come home to Fort Pierce from Texas, and they would get to go fishing with Uncle Sean. Now you can imagine me, right, Miss Goody Goody and Miss Rule Follower and Mama, that there were rules with Uncle Sean. You have to stay in the intercoastal, the river. Do not take these children in the inlet and do not go anywhere near the beach. My brother had a 6-foot John boat, so I was a little concerned about the fishing. So the kids would come home from fishing with Uncle Sean and they caught fish and they went swimming at Rope Island and they had a cookout with the fish that they caught. They were sunburned and they were happy. So we're back in Texas after that first summer of fishing with Uncle Sean, and we're watching Discovery Channel's Shark Week. And swimming across the screen is a shark. And Emily goes, Mama, I've seen one of those hammerhead sharks. And I go, no, baby, you've never seen a hammerhead shark. And Philip's going, shh. And Emily goes, yes, I have, Mom. Yes, I have. When we were fishing with Uncle Sean. And Philip's going, shut up, Emily. And I go, okay, spill it. And Emily goes, well, we were fishing with Uncle Sean in the inlet. And I go, you weren't supposed to be in the inlet. And Philip pipes up and he goes, oh, Mom, it was okay. The water was crystal clear. You could see all the way down to the bottom. No waves, flat as a pancake. And Emily goes, yeah. And Uncle Sean is reeling in this jack when all of a sudden this hammerhead comes out of the middle of nowhere and snap, swallows the fish whole and is dragging us out to sea. Now picture this, small children, small 6-foot boat, 8-foot hammerhead shark towing my children out to sea. Well, I get on the phone and I go, what were you thinking, Sean? He goes, Carol, I just cut the line. I would never let anything happen to your children. The next summer, we go back and we reviewed the rules again, and they went fishing with Uncle Sean. Well, when they got home, Sean looks at me and he goes, you and I are going out tonight. It's your treat. I've been with your children all day, and I want to go spend some time with my sister. I was so excited because Sean is like the local celebrity. And me being with my brother, my cool factor just went up to the nth degree. So we're out and we're at a bar. I'm the designated driver. Sean has had a couple of drinks. And when he drinks, he gets very affectionate. And he looks at me and he goes, Sissy, it's so great. I love you. And blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden, he sobers up. And he goes, I want to talk about that conversation that we had about 15 years ago. And I said, oh, the one where you hung up on me and I got a poor grade on my paper? And he starts laughing. He goes, yeah, I'm sorry about that. He goes, I've never said thank you and told you about the impact that it had on my life. When I got to Puerto Rico and I wanted to make a poor choice, I thought about what you said, that you were proud of me. And when I was surfing in that competition in Australia and there was a really big wave and I was afraid to take it, I thought about what you said about me having courage. And so I took it anyway. Thank you for that conversation and for letting me know that you loved me. Well, I'm very glad that we had that conversation because the following year, in 2004, Sean was taking a palm tree off of someone's roof after Hurricane Francis and fell to his death. During the funeral, hundreds of people came from all over the world, and they were telling Sean stories. One story about a young lady who was deaf, and Sean went out and learned sign language so that he could teach her how to surf. And another young man who had a wooden prosthetic leg, and it was too heavy for him to surf. And so my brother Patrick and Sean figured out how to make a prosthetic leg out of balsa wood so the young man could surf. Story after story after story. And I realized that I didn't know my brother. I never took the time to get to know him because we were different. And I made up my mind then in 2004 that I would get to know you, that I would learn from you because I understood that God puts people in our life to teach us, to mold us. And he brings people in our life, sometimes difficult ones, because we're supposed to learn how to love them in return. I'd like to ask you for your stepping stones assignment in this episode. I want you to reach out to someone that you haven't told in a long time why you love them. You know, we hear this all the time. Love you, love you, love you. It's become a greeting. But when's the last time you told someone who means a lot to you why you love them? So for this assignment, it's the full directions are listed as a Google Doc in the description box, or you can get the whole PDF workbook. I want you to engage in conversation with someone. You may not know the influence you have on them or the impact of that conversation for a long time, but again, do it anyway. So to conclude, in this episode, we've talked about two models of communication. We've talked about the transmission model of communication, where we just put it out there. One-way communication, feedback is not expected. And we've talked about the transmission model of communication. It's two-way, you're encoding, you're decoding, you are expecting a response, however, it may be delayed. In the next episode, we're going to talk about the model of how communication really works, the transactional model of human communication, where we send and we receive messages simultaneously. and this concept called noise, which can truly cause disruptions of messages. Thank you so much for watching, and may your light shine so brightly that others are drawn to follow. Be the beacon of hope that leads others to their path, and may God continue to bless you as you step into purpose for your life. Take care.